work, thrive, lead, persist, communicate.
Portrait of a Graduate. Welcome to our podcast.
The Springfield Public Schools Portrait of a Graduate is the community's vision of essential skills and attributes that students will learn before they graduate. It is intended to empower Springfield schools and the community to reimagine teaching and learning inside and outside of schools. More than 200 people attended our community events. At least 700 educators participated in educator conversations. Around 50 student leaders participated, and about 1,400 people reviewed draft copies of the portrait and provided feedback. It took more than a year to engage those stakeholders, more than 2,000 of them, in conversations where district officials listened to their hopes and dreams for Springfield youth. The result of those conversations is the Portrait of a Graduate, a single document that lists central skills and attributes that Springfield schools, along with the community, will help students develop. The next step in our work is continued engagement with educators, students, and community members, and utilizing the portrait as a blueprint that will guide the district's strategic plan for the next 5 years, a strategic plan that defines new ways to inspire and empower our students.
Hello and welcome to another episode of POG the Podcast. I am your host, Azell Cavaan, and we are doubling back today on a subject that we talked about 5 or 6 months ago when we were just about to embark on financial literacy as an elective at high schools here in Springfield Public Schools. This was a direct outgrowth of the comments and the suggestions and the interests that we heard from parents and community members and students themselves as we held focus groups and talked with folks about our Portrait of a Graduate. This course has been underway for the entirety of the school year so far, and we are joined by a teacher, some students, and a curriculum director to find out how exactly is it going in the schools. So please welcome Tom Rachele, who is the Director of Humanities and who joined us on our original podcast about this topic. Alec Archambault, who teaches 9th grade and 10th grade at Central High School. He is a world history teacher. He has a background in economics, and he's also teaching the personal finance curriculum at Central this year. And most excitedly, we're welcoming Keith Bowie Schindler, a 10th grade student at Central, and his classmate Siddiqi Kumu, who is in 9th grade over at Central. So let's get started. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Archambault. What are some of the topics that you've covered in your class so far?
Biggest thing that's been, we relate everything to budgeting. So our first unit was about planning and budgeting. And then we've been stepping through all the things in life that you would want to budget for. Your discretionary spending, the things you want to buy, things you need to buy, insurance, housing, mortgages, right, investing, retirement plans, and kind of bringing everything back to the budgeting and making sure that we're planned properly for each of these things as they come.
Probably the biggest thing right there in the beginning was just deciphering between wants and needs. I think it's something that you struggle with all the way up through high school, college, and actually running a household.
I think it gets hard as you get older.
Yeah.
Which one's which.
It does for me, that's for sure. How would you describe your students' reactions? Because you talked about things that, I'm sure maybe they never thought about before. So how do you think you feel like they reacted to some of the things they've been learning about finances?
Okay, so I can only tell you what it seems like, and I'm going to be very excited to hear Keith and Siddiqi's side on this.
Yeah.
Side too. I think that I've been really impressed with how the kids are handling the material. Like you said, a lot of these things are things I didn't start thinking about until I was 22, 23, 24, not even after high school, like after college, after roommates move out, right, like living on your own.
Yeah.
So a lot of these things are things that are really important in my life, like as a young adult still, or as I like to think. But they are, in general, mostly 14-year-olds, so a lot of these things are hard to wrap your brain around until you've had a little more of that chance for independence. But so far, I've been really, really impressed with how they attack it. They're interested. they seem to really understand that this is something that's going to come back later.
Right.
And they've been coming at things, I'd say, courageously, and I've been pretty impressed.
Have you noticed a trend of one topic that appears to be most interesting to the students?
So we are wrapping up. It's a 1 semester course. So at the end of quarter 2, Siddiqi and Keith will be leaving, and I'll have a new class of personal finance students coming in. And that was one of the most interesting pieces of it this year so far, was figuring out what things they're going to attach to, and
Right.
what things they're going to not like as much. So some surprises, I guess, for me. Roth IRAs was really a killer. Compound interest in Roth IRAs, they crushed it, loved it.
Wow.
Time wrapping around my brain with that. You sit at your investment meetings and try and figure out where you go. Things that seemed to go less successfully, insurance was a unit that felt tougher to get through. We're going to be putting heads together on attacking that. Just the idea of different types of insurance, right? Like health insurance, car insurance, home insurance, renter's insurance. There's a lot. And I think there's only a certain amount of times where you can say the word insurance and still have someone's full attention.
Right.
That was one of the things that we were working on this year. And so far, I'd say overall, really good. I've been impressed.
That's awesome. Well, can we talk to Siddiqi? Let's hear from students themselves. Siddiqi, I know you are on your way out to practice. So let's just, before we even get into finances, let's talk about some of the things you want to do and like to do, which is sports. So what sport do you play, Siddiqi?
I do swimming and soccer.
Swimming and soccer. And how's it going so far this season?
I think it's going pretty good.
Yeah.
It's like a mix, good and bad.
Yeah. So what's your stroke? What's your strong stroke in swimming?
I like doing freestyle and breaststroke.
Freestyle and breast. And what position do you play in soccer?
I do mostly strikers and winger.
Oh, okay. Awesome. So let me ask you, before you took this class, how much did you ever think about personal finances?
I didn't think about it at all, to be honest. I just thought when I was an adult, I just go with the flow and just figure it out.
That's probably like a lot of adults. We do, just find themselves going with the flow and wish we had something back in high school like this. I mean, when your teacher said Roth IRA, I remember when I was learning about Roth IRA, I was in my 20s and my head was spinning. So, geez, what do you think has surprised you the most in taking this course?
I think like how much you have to do to keep your money afloat, like paying taxes and doing insurance. I didn't think it was going to be so long of a process. I thought you just had to just pay for it and then just leave it. I didn't know you had to choose which one, like choose which interest has the best interest, and there's many different types of interests. And for taxes, you had to fill out W-2 and W-4 form. I never knew that before, so I'm glad I know it.
Right. So now when you are ready, which will be before you know it, to go out and start opening accounts and looking for insurance, you already have an understanding that, you need to shop around for the best. You already talked about, interest rates and W-2 forms, the importance of those. So do you feel like you have an advantage now when you get your first job and you start to have an apartment and things like that?
Yeah, I feel like I have a pretty big advantage now because I know, like I have a starter pack, so I know what to do now. So I think it's a really big advantage.
Awesome. Keith, how about you? Let's hear from you. You're in 10th grade over at Central. How's your school year going so far?
It's going better than the last one.
Yeah. How did you make out during remote? Are you happy to be back in class, in school full time this year?
Yeah, I have a very hard time paying attention during lectures, and being online, it was just a reason to go find something else to do. So here in person, it's definitely assisting.
Yeah, I think you're in good company with that. A lot of people had a hard time being remote. So let me ask you about this personal finance class. Do you think you've learned anything that can help you or your family right now, like right away?
Oh, 100%.
Really? So tell us about that. That's amazing.
I think what's the most beneficial out of everything I've learned for short term, it's definitely budgeting. Previously, I'd receive money, for just either doing chores around the house or birthdays or Christmas, and I just put it away for a bit. And then I think, well, I kind of want this, and I kind of want that, and I kind of want that. And then I'd spend all of it, and I'm like, wow, that literally did nothing.
Mm.
There was no point in any of that. I mean, it was just kind of impulse buying, and I've realized now that it just was not a good financial thing to do.
Not a good financial decision.
Yeah.
So do you think that this class is going to somehow play a role in your future decisions on a bigger level?
Most definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're already making different decisions about, how you handle your money. Is there anything that really surprised you about finances and how to budget and, all of the requirements involved in being an adult and having money?
It's a surprise to say, but creating generational wealth is so much more simple than it's set out to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy to save money, but once you do save money, it's so easy for that money to simply increase in value.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you can keep yourself from using that saved money, it builds interest very fast.
So I'm sure, Mr. Archambault, right now you want to just jump up and down and do a happy dance and go run through the hallways because, wow.
I'm impressed. I'm impressed right now.
So am I.
I don't know if, I know I'm the only one on camera. I'm sitting here like trying to hold my smile in, but yeah.
I mean, wow, we're talking about generational wealth and that it's actually attainable, right? So before this class, Keith, did you think that, did you ever think like that?
No, not really. I come from a very lower middle class family, and I was just thinking about it, and I'm thinking about all the struggles my mother goes through to support the family. And I think if she had something as beneficial as this class going through her life, her entire life would be different.
Now, how is it, right, as the child in the family getting all this information, and certainly you want to go back and share it with the family, how does that work? How do you do that? How do you have those conversations? Is it difficult, or do you find it more comfortable to talk about money now?
It's definitely easier. My mother, she's interested in learning this stuff. Like, I actually found it kind of entertaining because we use a website in class called Ramsey. And I went home one day and my mother actually had a book written by the same guy just on the table. And we're going through the stuff together. I'm looking at my curriculum. She's looking through a book, and the stuff that's being said is similar. So it's definitely easy to talk to her about this stuff. I didn't go to finance with no knowledge on anything. I had these conversations with her previously, but it's made it pretty easy.
That is fantastic. So, Mr. Archambault, how do you make your lessons relevant to students in their lives now, or is that even necessary? Because these students definitely get the big picture.
I'd say I have an easier time doing it by a lot in personal finance than in world history, if I'm being totally honest, like for those reasons, right? It is kind of just right there. Like I said, this semester was a lot of figuring out what things they're going to attach to right away and what things we're going to have to like step back and, figure out what, how to scaffold and what background to get them to. But yeah, in general, it's accessible. You know what I mean? It's there.
Yeah.
And it's not 400 years ago. You know what I mean? It's this year, next year. It's my 20s,
Right.
So they kind of attach to it.
Let me ask Keith and Siddiqi, either one of you or both of you can answer this question. Do you feel that in your class, in this particular class, do you feel a certain sense of like, this is relevant, this is more real life than a lot of the other classes that I take, or?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
I've never really been good at school. I've always been told that I'm intelligent, but I really don't enjoy doing work. And out of all of my classes, this class is the only class I've actually been passionate about going to. Because I can see myself using this stuff genuinely in the future.
Wow. Oh my goodness. That's what this is all about, right? That's what. Now, let me ask you, when you say you don't enjoy doing work, do you feel like it's because you just said, I can do it, but this interests you, you have a passion, so more of this and other kind of subjects or just more relevance to your life, do you think that would make you a more engaged student overall?
Yes.
Yeah.
I really like this class because this is stuff I can see myself using. For the
Right.
rest of my life, I can see myself taking pieces of information from this class and putting them into my daily routine. I can't see myself doing that in some of these other classes.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's what part of Portrait of a Graduate is about, right, Tom, is figuring out how to make other classes as relevant as something like this personal finance class. So, Tom, let's switch over to you because, we heard from, the meat and potatoes, what really matters, what's going on in the classroom. But none of that can happen if there aren't people working behind the scenes like you to make the connections, to get the curriculum, to bring it before the school committee and get it approved. So let me just ask you what your thoughts are when you think of from idea to this conversation that you're hearing from the students.
This conversation is fantastic. I love hearing the level of interest. It is something that I'm hearing from multiple students at multiple schools now. It is something that I'm proud to be a part of. It's not something that I do alone. Teachers like Mr. Archambault are the ones actually implementing the curriculum and making sure that students are having that experience. I was able to, from my end, figure out how to make sure that it was available and accessible to our teachers and students. And that was the important work. And, the students are the ones doing it every day. And to me, it's fantastic to hear that it is so well received on multiple levels in multiple schools, because it is something that we heard the public wanted, we heard our students wanted. It was something that I wish I had had as a student.
Me too.
So I'm just so happy for our students, teachers, and their families, as we heard.
Yeah, right.
The fact that it is working with not just our students, but they're bringing the information home, and it can help all of the citizens of Springfield.
The success of this and the impact that it's having is just so obvious from this conversation. Is there any way that this curriculum or this plan can be embellished or, spread more throughout the district? Are there any plans for expansion or anything?
So it is starting, and it is becoming available in all of our schools at the secondary level. We are currently
That's great.
We currently have some materials that we're working with our students, and we have modules through a different program for financial literacy in our middle schools. And I'm currently in the process of finishing up a grant for introducing the idea of financial literacy and personal finance to our youngest students in elementary school. So we're doing some pilot work there, and so that our students can know at the youngest of ages about saving and budgeting and understanding money and how they can hold on to theirs, a little longer.
Their hard-earned dollars. That's right. Well, thanks everyone for joining in of this episode of POG, the podcast, where we checked in to see how our personal finance curriculum is settling in with students and teachers. And it seems like it is going fantastic, swimmingly well, as they say. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Azell Cavaan, and this has been POG, the podcast.
Portrait of a Graduate, the podcast, is a production of the Springfield Public Schools Office of Communication. Azell Cavaan, executive producer and host. Christian Polanco, production manager. Ewan Tran, a senior at Putnam Academy, production intern. Theme music written by Marcos Carreros, music teacher at the Springfield Conservatory of the Arts, and performed by the Conservatory of the Arts School Band.
And I'm Davion Gatson-Kung.
And I'm Gabriella from Glenwood.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. Have a great day.